You just got a random text from a customer threatening to sue you because their brand new deck started rotting after 3 months. You're sitting on your couch in the dark, staring at your phone and thinking about the fact that your business is an LLC. But right after that thought, a much scarier one crosses your mind. You're wondering if they can bypass the business and legally take your family's home to pay for the damage. It's a paralyzing fear, and almost everyone gets the answer wrong because they misunderstand what an LLC actually does. The biggest myth in the entire working world is that paying $100 to register an LLC creates an invisible magic shield around everything you own. People think that little piece of paper from the state means nobody can ever touch their personal savings, their truck, or their house. We're going to dismantle that myth piece by piece right now, so you understand exactly how this legal tool works, and exactly how it can completely fail you when you need it most. An LLC is a limited liability company. It's a legal structure that basically creates a brand new, invisible person in the eyes of the law. When you form an LLC, you're creating a separate legal entity that's supposed to hold the business debts and business lawsuits, keeping them completely away from your personal life. If the business owes money, the business pays it, and you keep your personal bank account safe. That's the general rule. But that rule comes with massive strings attached. Let's talk about the first major crack in that shield. It's called piercing the corporate veil. Piercing the veil is a legal term that means a judge looks at your business, decides it isn't actually a real separate business, and practically erases the LLC from existence. If a judge erases your LLC, you don't have a shield anymore. Every single business debt and every single lawsuit instantly attaches to you personally. Your personal bank account, your savings, and your house are immediately back on the table. How does a judge decide to erase your LLC? The most common reason is that you mixed your money. Commingling of funds is a legal term that means you treated the LLC's bank account and your personal bank account as the exact same pool of cash. If a customer pays your business for a job and you immediately transfer that money into your personal checking account to buy groceries, you're commingling. If you pay your personal mortgage directly out of your business checking account, you're commingling. When you mix the money, you're telling the judge that the business isn't actually separate from you. You're just operating as an individual who happens to have a fake company name. Lots of blue-collar workers do this without thinking twice. They set up an LLC for their plumbing or electrical business, but they just run all the money through their personal accounts because it feels faster and easier. When a massive lawsuit hits over a faulty pipe or a bad wire, the judge sees the mixed money, pierces the veil, and suddenly, the lawsuit isn't against your LLC anymore. It's against you personally, and they can legally force the sale of your house to pay the damages. Even if you keep your money perfectly separated, your shield can still fail. The next piece of the myth is the idea that an LLC protects you from everything you personally do wrong. It doesn't. Let's go back to that rotting deck from the text message. Imagine you built that deck yourself. You cut the wood, you installed the ledger board, and you chose not to use the proper metal flashing to save a few bucks on materials. Because you skipped the flashing, water rotted the wood, and the deck collapsed with the customer on it. Because you personally made the bad decision that caused the damage, you're personally liable. Personal liability is a legal term that means you, the individual human being, are legally responsible for the harm that happened. Your LLC doesn't cover your own personal negligence or bad decisions. If you're the one who physically caused the damage through your own careless work, the person suing you can absolutely name you personally in the lawsuit. They can bypass the LLC entirely, win a judgment against you personally, and come after your personal assets. Your house is entirely at risk when you're the one who messed up the job. This brings us to another trap. So the tenant's lawyer gets a judgment against your LLC, and they legally force your LLC to sell the duplex to pay the judgment. You just lost your entire investment property. You might be thinking your personal house is safe because the LLC held the duplex. That might be true, but you still lost a massive expensive asset. If you had simply kept a robust landlord insurance policy on that property, the insurance company steps in, pays the lawyers, and writes the check for the settlement up to your policy limits. An LLC is a legal shield. It's never a replacement for cash. Insurance is actual money, ready to deploy the second disaster strikes. You need both, and you should never rely solely on a paper shield to protect real estate. Let's look at another way your personal house ends up on the chopping block. It's called a judgment lien. A judgment lien is a legal claim that gets attached to your real estate when you lose a lawsuit and can't pay the cash judgment. Imagine a scenario where you lose a lawsuit for $100,000 because of a personal mistake you made on a job site, or because you commingled your funds and lost the LLC protection. The judge says you owe $100,000. The person who won the lawsuit can take that piece of paper from the judge and record it in the county property records where your personal house is located. That paper instantly becomes a lien against your house. It acts just like a mortgage. You can't sell your house without paying off that $100,000 debt. The buyer won't get a clean title, and the title company won't let the sale close until the debt is satisfied. In many states, they don't even have to wait for you to sell the house. A creditor with a judgment lien can legally force a foreclosure sale. Foreclosure is a legal process where the property is seized and sold at a public auction to pay off the debt you owe. The sheriff literally shows up and kicks you out, selling your home to the highest bidder to pay off the person who sued your business. Laws vary wildly by state, so you need to understand exactly how judgments attach to real estate where you live, but the risk is incredibly real. Now that we've completely dismantled the myth of the magic shield, let's talk about reality. How do you actually keep your house safe when you own a business? You operate cleanly, you carry heavy insurance, and you respect the legal lines. You get a completely separate bank account for your LLC before you collect your very first dollar from a customer. You only pay business expenses out of that account. If you want to take profit to feed your family, you formally transfer money from the business account to your personal account first. You never write a business check for a personal grocery run. You buy a massive general liability insurance policy. General liability is a type of insurance that pays out if your business causes property damage or bodily injury to a customer. If a customer trips over your tools and breaks their arm, or if you accidentally flood their basement, this insurance pays for the lawyers and the settlement. You make sure your policy limits are high enough to cover a catastrophic disaster. You use the LLC to protect against debts and standard business lawsuits, but you use actual insurance to cover the disasters that will actually bankrupt you. You work hard to never personally guarantee a debt unless you absolutely have no other choice. If things ever get to the point where a customer is actively threatening a lawsuit, or where you're staring down a massive debt you can't pay, that's the exact moment you need a local business attorney. A local lawyer can look at exactly how you structured your business, exactly how you handled your money, and tell you exactly where you stand under your specific state laws before the sheriff ever shows up with a notice. When the stakes are your family home, you get a professional in your corner immediately. What is the absolute scariest reason a customer ever threatened to sue you over your work? Drop the story down in the comments. If this breakdown gave you the actual truth about how a business shield works and where it fails, share this video with a buddy who runs their own trade business and thinks their paperwork protects everything. Make sure you subscribe to Scribble Law so you always know the exact rules of the game before a massive lawsuit tries to take your home.